உள்ளதல துள்ள உணர்வு உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலர உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதா உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses from Ulladu Narpadu. We find ourselves in verse number 19. To put it to context, it is in the Viveka. The whole work is divided into Viveka, Vichara and Anubhava. In one sense, the verses 1 through 26, they are all the Viveka. 27, 28, 29, 30 is the practice or Vichara. And 31 to 40 we can take as Anubhava. The verse number 30, it works both ways. It's part of Vichara, the end point of Vichara, and the Anubhava Sthiti also is mentioned there. But so is verse number 20 in Upadesha Saram, which is included as part of 16 to 20. So we include verse number 30 here as part of 27, 28, 29, 30. Verse number 19 is the last of the Eppayari Temburuviletinum. As we had seen, Bhagavan in this work is not giving the names of gods for Vichara, but he has taken the Jnana Vichara. He begins with the duality of knowledge and ignorance. 4 verses. We have 10, 11, 12 and 13, all belonging to the discussion of the duality of knowledge and ignorance. Then 14th verse was on first person, second person, third person. Tanmai undel, munnilai padarkaigal, tamulava. 15th verse was about the now. Nigadvinai patri, irappedirva nirpa. 17th was Namandri. 15th was Nigadvinai patri and 16th was Namandri Nadedu Nadedu. 17th and 18th we had seen as Udal and Ulladu. Udal Nane, Tannai, Udararku, Udardarku, Ulagalavam Unmai, Udararku. Like that, the 2 verses complete the whole story from the perspective of body expanding to Vishwarupa Darshanam. And then that Vishwarupa Darshanam is also seen as the duality of seer seen, therefore false, and that has to subside or merge. The seer and the seen have to merge in the Atman, where this duality of seer seen is absorbed into the truth of the self. So that was verse number 17 and 18. The Ulagukku Adharamai Uruvatrarum Unarndar Unmai. That is, we find that there is an account by Krishna Premi in the book reading segment of last week. We had read an account by Krishna Premi where he is continuously bombarded with the Nanyar question from the moment he lands up in the ashram. and he tries to give some answer about Bhagavan Krishna, Yashoda. Then somehow his mind subsides with meditation on Radhe. And then at some point Bhagavan gives him a gap where he asks Bhagavan, what is your form? In fact, he is asking, what is the form of the entire world? And the moment he asks that, the form reclining on the divan vanishes. It becomes formless, and in a few seconds it regathers as the form in front. So in one sense he has Vishwarupa Darshanam as the whole area of names and forms as the nothing, the formless. But there too the seer and the seen is there. That the Vishwarupa Darshanam as even more terrific and terrible than all the forms going into the mouth of Krishna is suddenly to see the form in front of you vanish. But even there the Atman is there, says Bhagavan. Uruvatrar unarndar unmai. That this question is posed. Many of the Bhagavan devotees have had this Vishwarupa Darshanam. They see in Atma Vicharam the whole world as a blank, and some of them develop fear, some of them ask what to do with this. And Bhagavan invariably gives the Brahmastram. Are you not present? Even if the whole world becomes a blank, are you not present? So hold the self. For whom is this blank? Till the Swayam Prakasha Atma reveals itself or stands revealed, depending on whatever voice you want to use English in. Till then, the Vichara has to continue. So, Ulagunmayagam, Unarvillark, Ullark, Ulagadava Munmai, Unarark, Ulaginik Adaramai, Uruvatraram, Unarndar, Munmai. Till then, we have been able to come through. And today we have in front of us the last set of name and form that Bhagavan is going to use. In this Viveka segment, he divides the scene as Vidhi Madi. So let us see the verse number 19. Vidhi Madi Moola Vivekam Ilarke Vidhi Madi Vellum Vivadam Vidhi Madigat Or Mudalam Tannai Unardar Avai Tanardar Sarvaru Pinnum Avai Satru Vidimadi Moola Vivekam Ilarke. That is one phrase. Vidimadi Vellum Vivadam is only for Avivekam Ilarke. Vidimadigat Or Mudala Tannai Unarndar Avai Tanardar Sarvaro Pinnum Avai Satru. So Bhagavan brings before us one of the most complex and unresolved problems in philosophy, and probably objectively ever unresolvable problem of the duality of fate and free will. The relationship between fate and free will. On a personal note, this was the question that one of my students had asked me when I had wanted to give them a personality development course. He asked me what is the connection between fate and free will, and I had no clue. And that is where he suggested Bhagavan's teachings to go through. And from there, in one sense, though it took some more time, apparently the journey in the Atma Vichara had started. Let's come back to the verse. Vidimadi Moola Vivegam Ilarke Vidimadi Vellum Vivadam. So, for those who do not have the understanding and experience of the source of vidhi and madi, the ahankara, the truth of the ahankara, only to those who have not yet realized the source of the ahankara, the place where Ganapati Muni is asked to rest in, the place where verse 10 of Upadesha Saram asks us to rest in, Uditta Idathil Odungi Irutha, where you are coming out into existence, the relative existence, get back into that source, says verse 10. Only to those who are not aware of the truth of the ahankara, on which both the vidhi and madi exist. That is an interesting statement. We'll see to what extent we can put some light on that. But Bhagavan says one can hold Bhagavan and practice it to completely be free of this vidhi and madi. That is what is said in the second phrase. Vidhi madigat kor mudalam tannai unarda avai tanarda. The one or the apparent ones. There are no ones in jnana. Even the one is not there. But the one for conversation purposes, for satsang purposes, the one who has realized the truth of or the source of the ahankara, where the ahankara itself is dismantled, is destroyed, and one abides as the self-luminous self, where there is no other. Jnanamam tanemai nanavam jnanam ajnanamam பொய்யாம் அஜ்ஞானமுமே ஞானமாம் தன்னை அன்றி என்று அணிகள் தாம் பலவும் பொய்மையாம் பொன்னை அன்றி உண்டோ? Can the ornaments exist apart from the gold? Even before the ornaments are created, gold remains in its pure form. Even when the ornaments have their existence, gold has not lost any of its purity. One can look at it. And even after the ornaments have been melted, the gold remains gold. Similarly, the entire world of names and forms is nothing but the consciousness. Marattai maraitadu mamadayanai, marathil maraindadu mamadayanai, parattai maraitadu parmudal budam, parathil maraindadu parmudal budame. Into that jnana, into that consciousness, all names and forms get merged. If one can see the wood with which the ferocious elephant has been carved, then the form of elephant loses its significance. Similarly, when one can see the consciousness, the self-luminous self, which is the source of the entire creation of names and forms, if one can see that, then all the names and forms simultaneously merge into that self-luminous self. Therefore, there is no question of vidhi and madi. Only after the ahankara rises out of the self in delusion, one can say that one is faced with a complex set of circumstances which is beyond one's control, or that this set of circumstances have some inertness in them, whereas my intellect can get such purity that it can overcome that fate. All these arguments start the moment the ego falsely or apparently rises out of the self. Vidimadigat kor mudalam tannai unardar avai tanardar. The one who is abiding in self-luminous self, to such a one, there is neither fate nor free will. For a moment, before we go to the third phrase, let us digress into what is this fate thing that we are discussing, and the will or the madi, the mind of the individual that we are discussing. The strange story of Benjamin Button or some, this one was there, some movie was there, some story one can take. In that, the lady who is the key role player, she is training for a great opera presence, opera dancer kind of training she is taking right in the world stage. She meets with an accident when she comes out of a practice session, which completely rules her out from such a career. Now, this particular incident, they take us back how the accident takes place. The taxi comes and hits her when she comes out of the auditorium for practice. They take us back 3-4 steps. To the extent I remember, the lady, the main character, when she is coming out of practice, she is coming with a friend and she should have actually gone out with the friend. But she sees one of her laces slightly loose. So she says, "You go, I will catch up with you." And there is a 2-minute or a minute delay, which actually determines the time point when she would be on that road where the taxi comes. And the taxi guy's story is taken that he, 5 minutes before, he is in a restaurant having coffee and he comes out. Then he suddenly remembers he has left something back there or something like that. And he goes back and has a significant delay of 5-6 minutes. And then he comes out and takes the car and comes, and exactly at that time, there are 2-3 other leads taken. You can imagine that so many moments are built up as cause-effect series that that particular event could not have been avoided by any kind of human will, is the point. The point that they try to arrive is that, of course, they take us only 4-5 minutes in the causation. There is, of course, the hypnosis experiment we see in the 1970s, where the hypnosis and regression takes a patient back 3,000 years. She has a phobia of the swimming in water, and the therapist is a atheist, but he uses the regression therapy, hypnosis regression, to take the patients back to the cause and help them be witness to the cause and tide over that particular karma and be free of that fear. That has been his practice. But when he goes into takes this patient into hypnosis, she goes back 3,000 years into her life in Mohenjo-daro, where she has an accident and drowning. She dies in that particular lifetime in the lake there, and that has been uploaded in this innings, and that has been the phobia for her. So this is the complexity of the situation, from the fate and free will. How strong is fate and what is free will to do with all that? If the causation cycle goes back to that extent, not merely for 3-4 minutes, then what is it that I am speaking now? What is it the body is speaking now? And to what extent can a separate individual consciousness called Nanda Kumar, who imagines he is stuck up in a body, how much can he be in charge of the words coming out, or the time at which the mobile could be switched on and the access to the internet be taken, and all this? This is more or less the discussion that scientists, psychologists, nowadays neuropsychologists, neurobiologists, all these people are now involved along with the philosopher community. Now, we are not going to go into that, at least not a long way. I am just going to go to Bhagavan from here, the Bhagavan's information on the fate and free will. Let us complete the last line before that. The first line was Vidimadi Mula Vivegam Ilarke Vidimadi Vellum Vivadam Vidimadi Or Mudalam Tanai Unaranda Avai Tanaranda. So the one who has merged the ego into the Jnanamam Taneme, to such a one, there is no question of Vidhi or Madi because there is nothing other than the Jnanam for such a one. Sarvaro Pinnumavai Satru. Will such a one engage in any kind of thought about these two, Vidhi and Madi, is Bhagavan's. That means to the sadhakas who are in the Viveka segment, the instruction is don't go into the analysis of these two objects. Tattvangal Araivadu, Kuppayai Araivadu Pol, says Bhagavan. To break down the seen world into principles and to analyze those principles in search of truth is like analyzing the garbage which has to be thrown out, gathered all together and thrown out. So the instruction here from Bhagavan is don't ever get into discussion about these two. There is a YouTube presentation by two people. One of them is a famous philosopher, psychologist, I think Searle. So this dispute has been there at least for 200 years, he says, more than 2000 years. The same dispute is there, whether fate is mighty or is the free will mightier. Which of the two will finally win? Bhagavan says, Sarvaropinam, the Jnanigal will never get into these debates of the illusory fate and the illusory free will. They will ever abide in the source of the I, the ego, dismantling it. Only when the ego gathers itself, grasps some parts as I, keeps itself averse from some parts and keep related to it as a separate self, only then the questions of fate and free will. I am using this idea of this Jiva Bhava because we have discussed it earlier, and we have discussed it that in the Tanmay Undel Munile Padartegal, we have discussed what is this Tanmay. Tanmay is for that consciousness imagining that it will survive only when it holds on to some conditionalities or keep averse of some other conditionalities, and this attachment and aversion gives it a temporary or a temporal or a spatial limitation and conditional living, and it is ever happy in that conditional living till something comes and questions it. Hey, have you seen the truth? And the truth is going to be knocking at your doors all the time. When it questions like that, then there is a wake-up call to the limited I, and the inquiry starts. And when the limited I is dismantled, as it was mentioned in the previous sentence, Avai Tanarandar, Sarvaro Pinnumavai Satra. Will they ever go into the realm of illusory, dream-like discussions and disputations about fate and free will? Let us put it together before going into the golden words of Bhagavan on this topic. Vidimadi, the fate and free will discussion or the difference is only for Mula Vivekamilar. This difference arises only for those who don't know the source of the Ahankara. Vidimadi Vellum Vivadam. Such ones, they keep engaging in the disputations between Vidhi and Madhi. Whereas Vidimadigat Kor Mudalam Tanne Unaranda. The ones who have dismantled the ego and are abiding in that one Jnanam, for them both Vidhi and Madhi stand completely dismantled, completely non-existent. Will such a one, Sarvaro Pinnumavai Sat, will such a one ever engage in or get involved in or even think about Vidhi and Madhi? They will not, is the verse. Let us go into the golden words of Bhagavan about Vidhi, Madhi, and let us take first about willpower. The free will, when we look at free will, we imagine that free will means the ability to do a particular thing in a particular way. When we take like that, then it is all encumbered. Because in Jnanam, the free will is guided to the self. In Jnana Marga, in Atma Vichara, the free will, imaginary free will itself is guided to the self. In Bhakti Marga, the free will is made subservient totally to the destiny and still it frees itself. It comes to the same self. That is what we had seen in the last week. When everything is encompassed into a particular thing, then there can be release. There can be stepping out of that. When even a bit of everything is left out, then the release or coming out of the bondage will not be possible. We had taken up Buddha's argument: birth is sorrow, growth is sorrow, illness is sorrow, death is sorrow. To be joined with that which you don't like, which you are averse to, is sorrow. To be separated from that which you love is sorrow. But when everything becomes full of sorrow, there is full of bliss. As the consciousness cannot go anywhere, it remains still and it is full of bliss. Similarly, in Bhagavan's instruction regarding the our prarabdha, fate is another name for prarabdha. If we take prarabdham for the entire creation, from beginning to end of creation, as Devaraja Mudaliar is told by Bhagavan, whenever a body is created, whatever it is to do and whatever it is to experience is already fixed. Apply that rule to creation, then the entire creation is fixed up with prarabdha. There cannot be a change in the happenings. The causation is right from the beginning till the end. That becomes applicable there. Now, to that rule, when everything, our prarabdha prakaram, adarkanavam, aangangu irundu aatti vippan, என்றும் நடவாதது என் முயற்சிக்கணும் நடவாது நடப்பது எந்தடை செய்யணும் இல்லாது இதுவே திண்ணம். That which is to happen will happen, try whatever you may to stop it. That which will not happen, try however much you may to make it happen. This is absolutely certain. Hence the best course is to remain silent. So the consciousness is instructed, if you let the happenings be, then the happenings don't touch your being. You can be mauna. You can be completely free of the happenings. Let the happenings, all of them be fixed. But you can be free by not interfering, by understanding, so be it. Everything is happening as it should be. One of my old batchmates from 35 years back, 1885, we had joined the bank together. We have all rejoined, Arun Kakkar. He had his own way of delineating these things. Bhakti was there, but mainly it was through scientific arguments and all that, and we were exchanging Bhagavan's teachings, and he was working on his own, because everywhere Bhagavan is present within, truth is present within. Suddenly, a week back, he had sent a message that everything is as it should be, is it not? Though this appears to be a complete surrender of will, it is also the same statement which appears to be a complete control of everything, is it not? He had said. And I could do nothing but acquiesce and say I couldn't have put it better. When everything is as it should be, but one has to practice that, because he had come up with the next statement. However, this does not mean that everything becomes a zero. So I had just written back that why should it matter? We have to just focus on the process and allow the mind to settle with everything is as it should be. Let wherever that settlement take us. So practice that, practicing, but he had hit upon the rule by himself, because truth is there within everyone. He had made his own journey, and we could see that journey, him arriving at his own. Now he is not going to live it, because he has internally that truth. The finality of Bhakti Marga is the finality of Jnana Marga. When everything is controlled by Prarabdha, then what is there for you to can't do anything. So, but your existence cannot be touched by the happenings. Therefore, one can be in mauna and in that fullness of the self, in the surrender. But in Jnana Marga, in Vichara Marga, the same consciousness is asked to make the journey consciously, not surrender to the happenings or accept the happenings merely, but let it go. Let the happenings go and see whether your existence is tampered by the happenings. Or all the happenings, are they dependent on your existence? This is the journey we make in Bhakti and Jnana. And when we come to that point, everything is the self. Then to the same realization as in the case of the Bhakta, when everything is predetermined in front of you. So you can recede into the fullness of existence. Everything is the self. So the whatever is seen is absorbed into the self. But that everything, sarvam has to be actually experienced, not merely seen. Not merely seen, because in sarvam there cannot be seeing or knowing, there can only be being. So to put it succinctly, we can say that the free will apparently seems to be partially and majorly controlled by the happenings in the sensory world, and in the knowing world, definitely yes, there is still control from the happenings. It appears like that, but the free will of being cannot be tampered or cannot be touched by anyone. If one looks after the being alone, then that freedom cannot be taken away, is what we learn more or less. But these arguments are usually laying in the area of sensory world or in the mind. They never come into the being as far as philosophers, scientists, psychologists are concerned. That is why it is better not go into that argument area. Let us see how Bhagavan draws us in the relative area. From the relative area, how he turns us, even when we are not feeling that we are full-time not ready for Atma Vicharam, some amount of outwardness is there. See how he guides us. The question is, in talk number 423, what are the means for gaining willpower? Bhagavan gives a very beautiful answer, which turns the mind inward. Of course, we can remember that all the higher dimensions of existence are to be found inside, because the outside is the three-dimensional, or if you are willing to include time, the four-dimensional living that we have. The higher dimensions to be experienced, we have to go inward to intuit and to actually find out the higher dimensions. So your idea of willpower is success insured. Willpower should be understood to be strength of mind which makes it capable of meeting success or failure with equanimity. So Bhagavan brings us close to witnessing. See, he is not asking us about bhakti or about jnana here. He is taking purely for anyone who is willing to inquire from a very ordinary state of living. He is using very common parlance words in this answer, but he is still guiding the free will towards a space where it can start moving towards Atma Vichara. Let us see the beauty of this answer. Your idea of willpower is success insured. Willpower should be understood to be the strength of mind which makes it capable for meeting success or failure with equanimity. So equanimity starts transcending the fated experience. It starts transcending because one is no more attached to success or failure. These two words, the like and dislike, success and failure, slowly Bhagavan is moving us from the attraction and aversion towards witnessing by using the word equanimity. Willpower should be understood to be the strength of mind which makes it capable of meeting success or failure with equanimity. It is not synonymous with certain success. Why should one's attempts be always attended with success? Success develops arrogance and man's spiritual progress is thus arrested. Failure, on the other hand, is beneficial in as much as it opens the eyes of the man to his limitations and prepares him to surrender himself. We understand that surrender and letting go are not different. The verbal usage may be, the word usage may be different, but the action is one and the same. That one lets go of success and failure, one lets go of the happenings in the event-based flow of things. Failure, on the other hand, is beneficial in as much as it opens the eyes of the man to his limitations and prepares him to surrender himself. Self-surrender is synonymous with eternal happiness. Therefore, one should try to gain the equipoise of mind under all circumstances. That is willpower. So Bhagavan's definition itself, it shifts us from arguing with anybody. Because all the arguments you will find about the fate and free will be regarding success, the ability to succeed. Use my will to succeed at something. Use my will to stop from something bad happening. Something that I don't like happening, to stop that. How successfully, how clearly I can do that. That is my willpower. But Bhagavan shifts from there. He says, willpower is the ability or the strength of mind to take success and failure, both these imposters, as Rudyard Kipling says, both success and failure are imposters. How you can treat them with equipoise, that is willpower, says Bhagavan. He shifts the whole game from, but the scientists keep discussing how to get a thing done. But Bhagavan shifts it to a different field, to equipoise, to sakshi, to witnessing. Therefore, one should try to get equipoise of mind under all circumstances. That is willpower. Again, success and failure are the results of prarabdha. Let it be the results of prarabdha and not of willpower. A man may be doing good only and noble actions, yet prove a failure. Another man may do otherwise. That means he may be doing bad and not so noble actions and yet be uniformly successful. This does not mean willpower is present in one and not in another. So he shifts the game from success and failure, from the discussion of all the philosophers, from the discussion of all psychologists, he shifts to spiritual. How to have equipoise of mind. Now let us see his statements on the fate and free will. This is about willpower. So this is how he shifts the whole field. That as Kant also finds that each one of us has this freedom or autonomy to fit our own rules and live by that, and therefore we are free. See, the freedom of will is that we find out the rule that is applicable in the situation and we live by that. The consciousness lives by that. That finding and applying the rule by ourselves and the ability to live by that is freedom. Not just to go and drink a coffee when you want. That's not freedom. What rule can we fix? The two rules that Bhagavan gives, the universal rules. One of the rules of Kant is that the rule that you take should be a categorical imperative. Should be not only applicable to you, should be applicable to everyone. Because you see, when someone says this rule of destiny to people, the experiments have been done by psychologists. When somebody says about this rule that God is only deciding all the happenings, then the self-centered people, where they want to take up a test, the people who believe in the fate or God is running everything, they cheat more. But the same situation, when the God is deciding everything, people are not having the free will. If that is mentioned to the lawmakers, the ones who are in charge of the penal punishment for the whole society, for all others, when the same statement is given to them, there is a lot of compassion in them. There is a lot of karuna. The punishing nature comes down in them. That means the same rule, if applied with selfishness, if applied with egoistic nature for oneself, becomes badly applied. And when the same rule of universality is applied to God is running everything is applied to others, then it is having beneficial or less injurious results, is the finding of psychologists. That is why Kant says the rule that you apply should be applicable to you and to others. You should be able to simultaneously see, then you won't make the mistake of cheating. nor will you be harsh on others. So that universal rule that Bhagavan gives, that our prarabdha prakaram, adarkano and angam, that can be taken in by us. Even a Kantian philosopher can apply it and live by it. What is it to live by that? Not to try to win or lose, not to try, but to make the attempt, but not be disturbed by the result of success or failure, not allow the consciousness to move away from equipoise. That can be the practice one can have, and that equipoise can take us to the self. But see how Bhagavan talks about fate and free will together. In talk number 28, so we have moved from sadhana to Bhagavan's Upadesham about the whole field. What is the relation between my free will and the overwhelming might of the omnipotent? Is omniscience of God consistent with ego's free will? Is omnipotence of God consistent with ego's free will? Are natural laws consistent with ego's free will? Yes, free will is present, is the present appearing to a limited faculty of sight and will. The same ego sees its past activity falling into a course of law or rules, its own free will being one of the links in the course of the law. Omnipotence and omniscience of God are then seen by the ego to have acted through the appearance of his own free will. His own free will has been an instrument. Natural laws, so he comes to the conclusion that ego must go by appearances. Ego has to depend on the appearances. Surrenderedly, it has to cross the road. Surrenderedly, while crossing the road, it can see left and right, nothing wrong with that. But knowing fully well that even if you see left and right, somebody can come in wrong direction. That has happened to me once. Near the Shantinagar bus stand, I was driving a scooter. So I was looking to all the right directions. But one auto person had come from a sub road. If he had to go in the normal way, he had to go about 1 kilometer and do a roundabout. So he took a short route to the signal in the wrong side. And I obviously didn't see him. So we have to surrenderedly do the law observation, saying that even this observation is limited, and but still there is nothing else to do. We have to go by the appearances, but it can still be functioning under the ultimate rule which you are keeping in the mind, that though given this, it is subject to or a tool of the God's will. So constant remembrance of God, even while acting in the world, is what the bhaktas and jnanis do. They see that their own actions, they bear fruit some, most of the times or sometimes, but it is always due to God's will, because the wrong direction auto can come at any time. So natural laws are manifestations of God's will, and they have been laid down. This is how the ego will see that. Bhagavan in other talks, you can see the index and go through it, that Bhagavan says, so far as there is a body and one is interested in the happenings, there will be free will, and there will be sadhana to guide the free will. See, when I started the practice of speaking truth, acting dharmically, then the element of surrender starts creeping in. Even the speaking of truth, the right living, the dharma, they have element of jnana embedded in them, element of bhakti, the surrender embedded in them. That is how they become partly functional. Part surrender is induced there. So ethics, truth speaking, living rightly, seeing rightly, all these have the element of inwardness embedded in them. That is where those sadhanas become spiritual. Turn us towards the source, turn us towards the place from which the ego rises. That is where one has to ultimately go and pay the toll. To be really free, one has to go to the source from where the ego arises. Because it is only for the ego that both fate and free will arise. When the ego is dismantled and the self is self-luminously abided in, where is fate? Where is free will? There is only the self. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in practice till 8 o'clock. Then Akka will give us the summary once again. Namo Ramnaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining itself in all beings. By the immense grace of the Self manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpadu. And we are on the verse Vidimadi Moola Vivekamilarke Vidimadi Vellum Vivadam. As Nandakumarji said, this is the inexhaustible discussion, probably from the beginning of time and may go on till the end of time, which is greater, fate or free will. But the crux which has been given to us today is to get to the source. And if one gets to the source, what is the source? The source is boundless, it is causeless. Because what is fate or free will? Fate and free will both pertain to the cause and effect phenomenon. Fate is something happening because of fate, or does something happen because of free will? So the happenings are the effect of fate or free will. But what of that? If we go back to the previous verse, we find that the jnani lives in the self alone. So all these happenings are mere pictures, as Bhagavan says in Arunachala Pancharatnam. They are all merely pictures on you who are the screen. They are just rising, they are sustained, they subside, all in you who are the screen. So they're not real at all. And in our Tamil satsang on Sunday, Nandakumarji was dwelling on the correlation between dream and waking. So in dream, we don't seem to have any cause and effect at all. If we look back at the dream, it's all like so disjointed. But in waking, we are making a story. We connect one thing to another, and we say, oh, this is the story. This is the reason why this is happening. And once I have to find a reason for something to happen, then that reason, that cause, I assign either to fate or to free will. But in the self, there is no cause, there is no effect, there is no beginning, there is no end, there is no meaning to cause and effect at all. So Bhagavan says these are only for those who have not gone back to the source, in which there is no cause and there is no effect. If we look at a simple phenomenon like our sleep, deep sleep, so, what causes the deep sleep? We may say we are tired, we may say so many things. But on many days when we are tired, we are unable to sleep. And another day we may not be tired, we will sleep. We create a circumstance that we feel is very conducive to go to sleep. We create a circumstance, we say only if I ride on the right side or left side, if I have the light on, if I don't have the light on, something else, and all these situations only I can sleep. But even if all those situations are there, sleep may not come. And with none of those situations being there, sleep may come. So, the cause of sleep, the moment of falling asleep, the reason why we are able to drop everything is actually unknown to us, because at that point we go beyond the boundaries of cause and effect and we get back to the self. But how do we do it in practice? That was a very beautiful point which was brought out today by Nandakumarji. We are talking about the jnani. Many of us may feel, well, I have a long way to go to reach that state of self abidance, to understand what a jnani is about. I have a long way to go. What about me? Where do I start from? And So this Vidhi Madhi Moolam is reached. We were told today by submitting, by having endurance, by submitting, by simply having acceptance, total acceptance. And when we have total acceptance, what happens? No questions arise, thought does not arise, movements do not arise, one gets into the stillness. So that's why Nandakumarji has pointed out that whether one is telling the truth, whether one is actually practicing surrender, or whether one is practicing self inquiry, when there is total acceptance, total, in truth also there is surrender to the truth. So when the surrender becomes complete, when the endurance becomes complete, then we find that we touch that state of not questioning, not worrying about whether it is fate or free will. Actually, it ceases to matter. Bhagavan says in his Navamani Malai, he says, "O Arunachala, you are good and bad for me. Kurayum gunamum ni allal, enne nivatrai. When you are both good and bad, what am I going to think about other than of you? I will think about you. I don't think about good or I don't think about bad. If both fate and free will are the play of the supreme Ishvara, how does it matter whether it's fate or free will? Or if they both are dissolved in that self, in the consciousness, then where do they matter? They do not matter. They only arise for that individual who is an illusion. But what are we to do? Are we to simply sit quiet? As he again, Nandamati said, we can look left and right before crossing the road, because until an event happens, we do not know what is going to happen. Since we do not know the schedule of events, the best thing is to submit to the rules and regulations. By submitting to the rules and regulations, one is actually exercising acceptance or endurance. Why should one not follow the rules? Just because anything which is going to happen will happen, and in any case somebody may come and hit me in any case, so why should I look left and right? Why not look left and right? What else am I going to do? What better am I going to do other than following the rules? What better am I going to do other than telling the truth? Is telling lies a better option? Then again choice comes in. If I want to tell lies, if I want to disobey rules, that means choice is coming in. If choice is coming in, that means acceptance is not there. So the best way, Bhagavan says, is to submit to what he of course defines as fate, to his mother, but also to exercise the free will of submitting to that, the free will of inquiring, or the free will of surrendering. There, in that area alone, the free will is to be exercised. What happens then if a thought arises? Is a thought also, we say all external circumstances are according to the divine will. What about a thought? Even a thought being an action, being a circumstance, if it is by the divine will, then how can I abide in the self? This is the question which Natanananda asked Bhagwan. And Bhagwan says, no, no, in that area you have complete free will. What area? When a thought arises, not to identify with the thought. Dilip often says that one does not know what is the next thought one is going to think. How can one say one has free will when I do not know what my next thought will be? If I knew for sure what my next thought will be, if I have that much control over thoughts, then there is no question of saying mind control, the wandering mind, etc., etc., will not come into picture at all if we had such great control. So, right from the thoughts, we do not have control over what thought may arise next. And Nandakumarji has also given to us certain experiments, the Libet experiment and other experiments, wherein we are made to understand that even thought is pushed from somewhere within, so we don't have control. So we don't have control, say, over thought. Then what are we supposed to do? Not identify with the thought, says Bhagavan. Don't identify with the thought. That freedom you have. That is the Vidimadi Moolam. To get the vivekam of the vidimati moolam is something happens. It may be happening by fate or by free will, but that fate or free will both are pertaining to me, and what is my source. If I find out that alone, I can unravel the secret, whether at all there is vidhi, whether at all there is madi. When there is no individual at all, then where is vidhi and where is madi? It is like saying that it is because of fate that the snake in the rope was born. It is because of fate that the snake in the rope is sustained. It is because of fate that the snake in the rope died. Or, no, 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 it is free will that the snake was born, the free will that the snake was sustained, free will that the snake died. But actually, there is no snake in the rope. When there is no snake, where is the question of fate or free will for that entity which is not there? The entity itself is illusory. So, Bhagavan again and again takes us back to this point. And I often remember Professor Swaminathan telling my father, I used to write some series of articles in the Ramana way called Adventures of Mr. Ego. And Professor Swaminathan told my father, Sir, there is no such thing as ego. Bhagavan says there is no such thing as ego. Why does Sharada write about the adventures of Mr. Ego? When the ego itself is non existence and non existent. So, why does Sharada write about adventures of Mr. Ego? Who is this Mr. Ego? Who is the ego? நைவமானசம் மனமென ஒன்றிலை உந்தி பர. When we ask for whom is this, for whom is this, there is no such thing as the mind, says Bhagavan. There is no manas, there is no vidhi, there is no madi. Avai tanardar. Those who find, then Sharvaro Pinnum Avai. Where is the question of having fate or free will in that causeless being? In the causeless being. When there is no cause, there is no effect. And there is no need for anything at all. There is no need to attain anything. When there is no need to attain anything, what is it? Where is fate and where is free will? Where is the role of fate? Where is the role of free will? All these are in order to make us attain something, to get somewhere, to experience something. When that experiencer is gone, when the need to attain something, anything is totally gone, Krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha. So what is there? There is nothing to be done at all. When there is nothing to be done, then what is to be attained and what is the force that is guiding the action or making these actions happen? Where would be the concern about all this? Says Bhagavan, pointing out to the possibility of a great freedom. See, Bhagavan in this verse, he has freed us from fate, and he has freed us at the same time from the burden of doership, which is free will. Free will is doership. So he has freed us from that burden of doership. At the same time, he has freed us from the burden of fate, a worry, a sort of anxiety, because I think, oh, how can I help anything? I am fated to go through all this. I seem to be fated to go through all this. As if some force is putting me through something which I do not want, which is making me wallow in sorrow and difficulty. But Bhagavan says you are free of both, you are above both, you are beyond both. Just as he has told us that one is beyond time and space. That which is beyond time and space, how can it be subject to fate and free will? Fate is completely a matter of time. It has to do with destiny, past, present, and future. Already he has actually nullified all that. He has nullified time, he has nullified space, but he is defining it from this perspective for us again. From every perspective, he is defining it so that We do not have any escape routes. We can't say, oh, it is because of this. Oh, it is. Bhagwan is closing all our escape routes and confining us to the heart space by His immense grace. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.